Hi, I'm Chris Hay. I'm an independent consultant working with researchers from Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota, as well as the Iowa Soybean Association, on a project to advance the conservation drainage practices of bioreactors and saturated buffers. One of the goals of that project is to give some more guidance to farmers and landowners that have put in these practices as we put more and more of these in. So we recognize that having some more information on how to actually manage these practices will be useful for folks that have put these practices in. So we're here today to talk about managing the control structures that are part of these practices. And so with me then is Keegan Culp. Keegan is the Executive Director of the Ag Drainage Management Coalition. So Keegan, why don't you tell me a little bit about what the Ag Drainage Management Coalition is and what it does?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Happy to be out here. ADMC, we're an industry-led nonprofit that really just focuses on water management to improve agronomic and environmental outcomes for our farmers.
So we're here talking about managing the water control structures that are part of these bioreactors and saturated buffers. And so, Keegan, why don't you tell me a little bit about what a water control structure is and what it does?
Yeah, so these water control structures, they're an essential component of all these edge of field practices like saturated buffers, bioreactors, and even drainage water management. And they act as an adjustable outlet for that field drainage system.
Okay, and so what specifically do they do then with saturated buffers, bioreactors?
Yeah, so the control structures, what they really do is they intercept that water before it's outlet into the stream and divert a portion of that tile flow into the treatment system like your saturated buffer and bioreactor.
Okay, now we're managing that water, we're raising it up a little bit to divert it into our bioreactor or saturated buffer. Does that impact drainage in the field? Is that a concern?
A great question. It's a question we get all the time. These practices are designed to take that into consideration. So if you're out on field that has a lot of elevation difference between where the field is compared to where the control structure is, you probably don't need to adjust those outlet settings throughout the year. If it's a flatter site, there could be a potential impact zone behind the control structure where those elevations are similar. So there would be recommended to change those stop log settings a few times throughout the year. And in any situation, if that flow from that field drainage system exceeds the capacity of our treatment system, there is a direct bypass built into these, so it allows that water to drain out.
Okay, great. And then yeah, I think the operations management plan that they get with their practice then would tell them whether they've got a site that needs that seasonal adjustment or whether it's one where they can leave the stop log settings where they are most of the time. When it comes to actually managing and maintaining these structures, what should folks be thinking about with that?
Yeah, so management and maintaining these things really isn't too complicated. Really is a few times a year, should probably come out and do some inspections.
Okay, so a few times a year, what kind of timing should they be thinking about as far as looking at these?
Yeah, generally spring and fall is the first that come to mind.
Okay, and so spring, what should they thinking about in spring?
Yeah, so what I usually do is just kind of a visual inspection of the structure. You can do it at the same time when you're checking out your other components of these practices. Want to make sure that the lid's there, on tight. There's no cracks in the lid. The structure itself hasn't been damaged over the fall during the freezing and thawing cycle.
Okay. Anything else that they should look at?
Yeah, you should take a look inside the structure then. Inspect that. During the spring of the year, usually these tile lines will have flow. It's very active at that time. If that's not flowing properly, that's something you should flag right away. You also want to make sure no debris is built up in there, mud, other sediment getting in there. If you do see that, you'll want to clean that out.
Okay, great. So yeah, just making sure the water's flowing freely, nothing's blocking it out.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so we talked about spring. With the look to fall, what should they be looking at with the control structure in the fall?
Similar to the spring, that visual inspection, make sure the integrity of the structure's still there. But additionally, in the fall, you want to take a look at maybe the stop logs is a good opportunity to take a look at those stop logs, as typically that water isn't flowing in the fall.
Okay, and so when they look at the stop logs, what should they do?
Yeah, so you can take those stop logs out. You need to inspect the gaskets. It's a good time to lubricate those gaskets, help with those seals, and it really helps keep that structure, gives it a longer lifespan of it, and keeps that water tight seal so you're not losing water underneath those stop boards or to the sides of it.
Okay, so we talked about spring and fall as good times to check the control structures. Any other times they might want to consider looking at the control structure?
Yeah, I would recommend after a big storm event or a series of big storm events, you probably should go out there and take a look at that control structure, especially if there's a lot of surface runoff associated with it, or wherever that outlet is outletting to. If that stream comes out of its banks or gets really high, you'll want to come back and take a look at that control structure.
Okay, so they're looking for debris. What is it that they're looking for?
Yeah, very similar to that spring check. anything, get into the control structures or debris, sediment, trash from the field, or even if it backed up from the stream, did anything happen to it? And these are pretty resilient, and so most of the time they're going to be fine, but it's always a good idea to check.
Thinking about kind of big storm events, there may be some concerns at times about excess water with those big storm events. Is there something they can do if that becomes a concern?
Yeah, if it's an abnormally wet time of year, or if that big storm event comes through and you are concerned about your drainage, you can remove some of those stop logs to get more of that full drainage from your field to protect your crops.
Okay, so that'll speed up the drainage. Then once that's taken care of, things have dried out, they should go back and replace those stop logs then, right?
Yep, exactly. And that doesn't happen very often where you need to go in and do that, but definitely something to be aware of.
All right, so we've kind of talked through the basics of operating and maintaining these control structures. Let's maybe dig in a little more on specifically on operating the structure and managing the stop logs. And so you mentioned fall is a good time to come out and actually pull and inspect the stop logs, so maybe that's a good place to start. And so when you think about that, folks are going to come out, they're going to come out to the control structure. They're going to take the lid off, and one good practice is always to put that clip right back on the control structure, so otherwise it doesn't drop out and get lost down in the grass. And so they've taken the lid off, they've clipped the clip back on. What are they going to do next?
Yeah, so first thing, we'll take a look at the stop log tool or stop log puller. It has kind of two options here. Right here is first where you hook on to the stop boards and stop logs to pull them up. And here's a notch to push them back down in place. And so when you come out, you can just hook on to a stop board, pull it up.
So they're hooking into those lifting clips then.
Yeah, we got a couple clips here. Some of them are plastic, some are metal, kind of depends on when you got your control structure. Things we look at, so this is a 5-inch stop board, is these gaskets right here along the side, and that's really what provides that seal. You can see these are well lubricated. If they're dry, that's when you'd want to put some more of that lubrication on again.
Okay. What else should they look at?
Yeah, so you have an operation management plan, knowing how many stop boards to have in place, make sure you're kind of at the right point in your season, make sure those are all there. There are more stop boards, so take a look at those. So here's an example of a 7-inch structure. I'm gonna do that. So, or 7-inch stop board. So that's what they look like. Once again, most important thing are these gaskets. If they're starting to get worn, hopefully you have extras back in the shop. Otherwise, if you don't have any of those extras, it might be time to think about ordering replacements.
Yeah, and so another good idea is to always have a little tote with you. You can bring some extra stop logs in that tote. As you're pulling and working with the stop logs, a good idea just to keep them off the ground so they don't get debris, junk on them, and that then would get in those tracks and potentially break down the gaskets, ruin that seal.
Yeah, that's probably the most important thing is keep these tracks clean. During installation, always big consideration. And then, when you're checking these stop logs, don't let them get dirty.
Okay. And then, again, something we can use for storage. And so, again, knowing where we got those extra stop logs stored in the shop or some other accessible location so that when we need new stop logs, we know where they're at and we can get them.
Yep, and typically when you get a new control structure, the stop boards are filled all the way to the top of the control structure. So you will have extras. You won't use that many during the season.
Okay, good too. Yep. All right, so we've got the stop logs out. We've checked them over. We've made sure the gaskets are good. We've lubricated them. Now it's time to put them back in. So how do we actually do that?
Yeah, so the first thing is the bottom board, clearly labeled here. It's a little bit different than the other stop logs because it has a gasket along the bottom, just so it gets that nice tight seal at the bottom of the control structure.
All right, so we're starting with the bottom board.
Yep, when you're doing that, you want to make sure the hooks are downstream, and so the seals are kind of pressed up against the front, so that way the water, when it's pushing from behind, will form a nice tight seal. Also a good idea to try to line it up tight against one side of the tracks, and then you just kind of push it down, get it started, and then you can use your, the notch side of the stop log tool and just push it all the way down. Hopefully it slides nice and freely because we're well lubricated now. You get down to the bottom, kind of give an extra little push. Maybe look, see if you see any water flowing underneath, and that looks good. And so then we can go ahead with the rest of them.
All right, so hooks downstream, lined up against one of the tracks.
Yep, and this is one of the 5-inch boards here, so I like going every other personally. I guess you can do whatever your management plan says, but I like going 5/7, 5/7. Yep, push all the way down, same story.
And the management plan will tell us how many of those 5-inch and 7-inch stop logs we need.
Yep, in spring right now, coming into the summer season, we need one more 7 for this site.
Okay.
push all the way down. Make sure you got it good tight. Looks like it's watertight right now, so I think you did a good job, Chris.
All right, great. And so then if we want to confirm that stop log setting, good idea to have a tape measure with you. Then you can just put that tape measure down, measure to the top of your structure, and we're at 52 inches. And so we could check again with our management plan to make sure we've got that stop log setting right.
Yep. And there's some nice tools available at Iowa Soybean's website to double check, kind of convert the management plan that you receive from your designer to what that looks like as far as number of stop ports.
So we got the stop logs back in. So what do we do from here?
Always remember to put your stop log tool back in the structure. That way you always know where it's at and you don't leave it behind.
And it's ready to go next time.
It's ready to go next time. Then we just replace the lid, make sure that gets put back on. Our clip still clips the structure so we didn't lose it in the grass.
Yeah.
This one's a little tight, but sure you got it.
And yeah, want to make sure that that's clipped or locked so that nothing gets in. What else then?
Yeah, so quick part of these visual inspection. You can see here we have this site well marked out with some reflectors, a flag. That way, if somebody's coming in doing maybe some late night planting or harvesting, they're not going to accidentally clip it with the equipment. The grass grows up pretty tall around these structures and grows fast, so they can't get lost unless you have these markers. Other good ideas to make sure you're protecting it from rodents. So on the outlet side, make sure that rodent guard's in place and doing what it's supposed to be doing. Lid on top keeps the ruins from climbing down from the top of the control structure. But after that, there's really not a lot else to do.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks again, Keegan, for helping us out. We've talked about managing the control structures, and again, hopefully folks have gotten a little more information if they've got one of these bioreactors with saturated buffers on how to manage their control structure. If they do have some more questions, where should they go to find that information?
Yeah, the Conservation Drainage Network website is a great resource, and all this will be posted there. ADMC's website will also have some additional resources available to people interested.
Okay, great. So again, we covered control structures here. We've got other videos covering other topics around bioreactors and saturated buffers. So check out the rest of the videos in the series and that Conservation Drainage Network website. And again, we hope you learned something from this.